18 months of silence, 1 season sacrificed on purpose, 6 parts built in secret across 3 different test tracks. Ferrari has been saving everything for this exact moment, and Miami is where it either changes the entire title fight or goes down as the most expensive gamble in modern Formula One history. And a plan so bold that even Ferrari's own people could not stop talking about it in hushed tones inside the factory walls of Maranello. What is about to land in Miami is not a normal upgrade. It is not a patch job. This is the moment an entire team finds out whether the most daring gamble in recent Formula One history was genius or madness. Ferrari did not stumble into this moment. They planned it. They sacrificed an entire season for it. While their rivals were celebrating wins and collecting championship points in 2025, Ferrari was working in silence, burning every resource, every wind tunnel hour, and every engineering brain they had on one single goal. This car, this package, this moment. What Ferrari is bringing to Miami is not just an upgrade, it is a declaration of war. So let's get into exactly what they are bringing, piece by piece. Because once you understand what each part does and why it exists, the full picture becomes something genuinely difficult to wrap your head around. The biggest piece of the whole package is the floor. The floor is the single largest aerodynamic part on any Formula One car, and Ferrari has rebuilt theirs completely from scratch. Diego Tandi's Aero Group has been running this new design through hundreds of wind tunnel tests at the Maranello factory since late January. The new floor is chasing 3 things at once: a more total downforce, smoother airflow under the car, and better grip through fast corners where the current version has been quietly bleeding lap time. The first 2 races made the problem impossible to ignore. When the SF26 rolls through medium and high-speed direction changes, the air under the floor gets disturbed, the rear end loses grip without warning, and the driver goes from feeling planted to feeling completely loose with no heads up whatsoever. That unpredictability costs more than raw lap time. It costs driver trust. And lost driver trust costs tenths all on its own. Ferrari tested this new floor at Monza on the 22nd of April, and that track choice was no accident. Monza's long straights and fast chicanes create exactly the forces that expose floor problems. If it works there, it works anywhere. But the floor is not even the part that has the entire paddock talking. That honour belongs to the Macarena rear wing version 2. This is without question the most mind-blowing piece of technology the 2026 season has produced, and it is not particularly close. Every other team uses an active aero system where flaps simply hinge open on straights to cut drag. Ferrari's Macarena does something completely different. The second and third flap sections rotate roughly 270 degrees, basically flipping themselves inside out and creating a stall effect that no hinged flap system can match. Just stop and think about that for a second. Every other team has flaps that open and close. Ferrari built a wing that turns itself upside down. Version 1 showed up in Chinese Grand Prix practice and immediately revealed 2 problems. The timing between front and rear flap movement was off, and the rear of the car was losing grip under combined braking and steering, which is the worst possible place to have a grip problem. Version 2 fixes both issues with a lighter build and a cleaner aerodynamic shape. And here is the part that makes every rival team's situation genuinely miserable. Nobody can copy it. The reason comes down to Ferrari's exhaust flow turning plate, a flat piece mounted behind the exhaust outlet that steers hot gases to feed both the rear wing underside and the diffuser airflow at the same time. The key detail is that this plate is directly tied to where the differential sits inside Ferrari's gearbox casing. Any team wanting to replicate it would have to completely redesign their gearbox and entire drivetrain from scratch. So that is not a mid-season fix. Ferrari locked that decision in before a single 2026 car ever turned a wheel. The third upgrade is the one Hamilton has been desperate for since Japan. The SF26's most painful weakness through 3 races has been battery energy management, and the problem has a name inside the paddock: superclipping. The battery drains faster than the charging systems can refill it, leaving the car without electric boost exactly when it needs it most. At Suzuka, Hamilton was doing everything his engineers asked in terms of energy saving and still losing time on every straight to better-powered cars. The gap to Mercedes sits at around 20 brake horsepower, and on a track like Miami with its long straights and heavy braking zones, that turns directly into lost positions that corner speed cannot recover. The new software completely rewrites how the battery charges and releases power across a lap. Same hardware, same battery, same motor. But the brain controlling everything has been rebuilt from the ground up. It will not close the full gap to Mercedes overnight, but it shrinks it enough that Ferrari's corner speed can finally start doing the job it was always supposed to do. Rounding out the package are 3 more parts that stack onto everything else. The halo fins that were pulled in China after an FIA material flag return in a fully legal version, guiding airflow cleanly over the cockpit and feeding the engine intake and rear wing above. Weight-saving components are spread across the car, and with every kilogram removed worth roughly 0.3 per lap, the gains over 57 Miami laps add up to nearly 2 free seconds of race time. And custom Miami spec cooling solutions keep the power unit and battery operating within their safe windows in the brutal Florida heat and humidity, making sure none of the aerodynamic gains are lost to thermal fade come race day. In April of 2025, Ferrari team principal Frédéric Vasseur made a decision that almost no team in Formula One history has had the courage to make. He pulled the plug on the SF25, not slowed it down, not quietly shifted priorities. A full and complete stop. Every wind tunnel hour, every engineer, every resource inside that factory was pointed at one thing only: the 2026 car. What that meant in real terms was painful. Ferrari went through the entire 2025 season without a single win and dropped to 4th in the Constructors' Championship. While McLaren, Mercedes and Red Bull were fighting for glory at the front, the Ferrari garage was quiet. Not the quiet of a team that has given up. The quiet of a team building something nobody else could see yet. And that sacrifice came with a reward most people on the outside completely missed. By finishing 4th in 2025, Ferrari earned extra wind tunnel time and extra testing allocation for 2026. More runs, more data, and more development laps than Mercedes, McLaren or Red Bull are allowed. 6 extra months of focused build time that title-fighting rivals simply did not have. The man who shaped what Ferrari did with all of that time is Loic Serra, the former Mercedes engineer who joined the Maranello technical leadership in 2025. His philosophy was never about having the fastest car at the season opener. It was about building a car that gets faster throughout the entire year. Not fast at launch, fast when it counts. And here is what makes Miami even more loaded than it already was. Through the first 3 races, Ferrari was operating under tight budget cap restrictions that forced them to hold back. Now, the SF26 that raced in Australia, China and Japan was a deliberately restrained version of itself. From Miami onwards, those restrictions ease and the full development rate switches on. The car showing up in Miami is the first truly unleashed version of the SF26. But Ferrari is not racing in a vacuum. Mercedes comes in as the team everyone is chasing. 3 races, 3 wins, 135 points. Russell and Antonelli have been delivering the kind of clean 1-2 finishes that Ferrari desperately needs from Hamilton and Leclerc. And yet, the picture is about to shift. Mercedes is not bringing major upgrades to Miami. Their approach has been to build a fast car immediately and extract more through setup learning rather than big physical changes. That plan has worked beautifully, but it also means their development ceiling is closer than it looks. And a compression ratio loophole that Mercedes-powered teams have been benefiting from since the start of the season gets closed by the FIA after the Canadian Grand Prix, costing them roughly 0.3 of a second per lap. 0.3 paired with Ferrari's upgrade package and a potential Ferrari engine step around Hungary changes the gap between these 2 teams in a very real way. McLaren is the wild card that could flip the whole fight overnight. Piastri finished 2nd at Suzuka, and the team arrives in Miami with a serious package targeting floor grip, drag cuts, and a wider setup window. If it works, a 2-team fight becomes a 3-way war instantly. And then there is Red Bull. Verstappen finished 8th at Suzuka. They brought new side pods, a new floor and a new engine cover to Japan and gained nothing. The RB22 has handling problems that small fixes cannot solve, and the team sits fifth in the standings with just 17 points. That is not a rough patch. That is a crisis. And the question nobody at Milton Keynes wants to answer is whether losing Adrian Newey removed a level of design genius that simply cannot be rebuilt within a single season. Inside the Ferrari garage, there is a human story running alongside all of this that adds one more layer to an already loaded weekend. Lewis Hamilton arrives in Miami with a new race engineer on the pit wall. Cedric Michel Grosjean takes over from Riccardo Adami, who has moved to a different role after 3 rounds. At 41 years old in his first Ferrari season, Hamilton is still adapting to a car that rewards a completely different driving style to the Mercedes he mastered over more than a decade. The engineer change is designed to give him a voice on the pit wall that matches how he naturally processes information in the heat of a race. The signal coming from his side of the garage after China was straightforward. He is back to his best in mind and body, and he believes the SF26 has more pace than the first 3 races have shown. Charles Leclerc has been the steadier of the two, taking 3 straight podiums across Australia, China and Japan. But what is genuinely exciting about his performances is not the results themselves. It is what his 1-lap pace is hinting at. In qualifying trim, Leclerc has been finding raw speed that suggests a level of performance the race runs have not been able to access yet. And that gap between 1-lap pace and race pace is exactly what the energy software is built to close. When the superclipping problem is solved and the battery delivers power at the right moments instead of running dry on the straights, Leclerc's Saturday speed becomes Sunday winning speed. Ferrari sits 45 points behind Mercedes after 3 races. On paper, that looks like a deep hole. Inside Maranello, they are reading it as a temporary number built during the period the car was being held back. And there are 3 things locked into the SF26 that no rival can touch, regardless of how many upgrades they bring. Steel cylinder heads running at burning pressures never before reached in Formula 1. A smaller turbo that trades peak power for the explosive fast starts that have been one of Ferrari's most consistent weapons. And that exhaust flow turning plate that is physically impossible to copy without rebuilding an entire gearbox and drivetrain from scratch. These are not upgrades. These are foundations. If the new floor delivers the downforce the wind tunnel has been promising, if the Macarena version 2 fixes what grounded version 1, and if the energy software closes the straight line gap to Mercedes, then 45 points starts looking like a short-term problem rather than a season-defining one. If any part of that falls short, the questions about whether 2025 was worth sacrificing will get louder and harder to answer. Everything Ferrari gave up, every silent weekend in 2025, every wind tunnel run, every design decision made before rivals even knew what they were being locked out of, it all gets its first real-world answer in Miami. Subscribe and turn notifications on because this title fight is about to change shape in ways that nobody outside of Maranello has fully seen coming.